G'day guys, and welcome to episode 10 of Pirate Think. I am so excited and so chuffed with myself that I have managed to have 10 days in a row, 10-minute video, 2 camera, and today I thought I would talk about our own responsibility for our own emotional health. Roll the intro. If you're not from Australia, this guy right here, the Bundaberg brand, is one of the best drink makers we have. Here we are, episode 10. I am just absolutely over the moon that I have made it into double digits. It seems like such a massive effort so far, and yet I feel the slightest amount I'm beginning to get more comfortable in front of the camera. I am beginning to understand and make that great neurological link between my mind and my mouth, and not just dribbling the shit that I usually do, but give my mind some time to get it out to my mouth and start articulating what I actually want to say. The responsibility we have as humans and as individual people, the responsibility we have over our emotional world has to be one of the most, I suppose, underrated or non-spoken about topics that I really feel is one of the biggest keys to not only self-growth and self-development, but really it is responsible for, I want to take a stab at it and say like 80% of the world's issues. I could jump up to 90, but I feel, oh what, Brad, you don't have stats to back any of that up, so just fucking calm down a little bit on your 90% of the world's fucked because they don't look after their emotional health. Our own emotional worlds are so diverse and so individualized that it can only be such that in order to get complete fulfillment, fruition, understanding, development of, or any of those kind of words in our emotional worlds, it is really the responsibility of the individual to find that, to develop that, to grow with that, to change that, to wrestle with it, to struggle with it, to get control of it, to find a way that they are able to manage their own emotional health and needs in the best way possible. I put the 17-minute video in and it didn't record any audio, and I wanted to shoot myself in the face. So here I am trying to word vomit out the same one again. Doing it again? Okay. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like full shooting in the face, but definitely some sort of
You got this.
malicious damage to said face.
I like that face.
Yeah, you do. Whole texture. You know what, on a side note, do you know why we do this? I don't, but freaking everyone does it, and I swear it has to be a key to unlocking some part of the universe. I'm not sure what part, but babies, children, adults, old people, you give them a cool, refreshing liquid of some description that they need, you can guarantee they're going to polish that off with a little... Don't know what it is, but we need to find out, guys. We're going to crack that motherfucking code. I remember a very clear moment in my life where I probably didn't even realize that I was looking for, or wasn't aware through a good chunk of my life, that I was looking for the affirmation from others to fulfill some internal sense of my self-worth or how well I'm tracking in life or my achievements. And really on a base level, I suppose our natural instinct is to go once again to the physical, not the internal, to see where we're stacking up. Old Susie's got a Mercedes that she drives around. John's got a beautiful $1 million mansion. I'm still renting. Greg over there's got a freaking wine cellar full of shit. Whatever it might be, but we have these external elements that we love to naturally gauge one's success or one's ability to, I suppose, live a better life than us. And externally, that is one facet of our life, but our internal worlds, which for a lot of people, the internal world is the dictating factor of their subsequent success down the track. You definitely get your anomalies in life, that some people win the lotto or were born into money or whatever it might be. There's anomalies out there, but as a general premise for successful people, most successful people have got some sort of shit lined up in their life and some sort of accountability system to their internal world that they have worked on and mastered, which has aided in them achieving where they got to. On the way up or throughout our life, kind of working through things, we definitely get stuck in this moment of trying to peg ourselves on our standing based on age, based on demographic, based on what people in our lives are doing around us, or based on all these metrics. But what we very rarely do is take the time to go, hey, where does my internal world stack up to that person's internal world? And I remember there was Now, I clearly remember this time in my life. It was a Friday night, I believe, and I'm just going to throw it out there. I had recently achieved a couple of really good milestones in my business, and I felt I had been doing really well and had kicked some really great goals. And I was kind of desperate in some sense, which I hadn't realized at the time, but I was definitely desperate for someone just to pat me on the back and tell me, hey, man, you're doing an awesome job, or I can't believe you did that, and I thought you were actually pretty dumb, but it turns out you're not too bad. Kind of needed that in my life from an external perspective, because my internal world at that stage definitely wasn't my internal talk to myself. Hey, Brad, I really think you're a good guy. It was more like, fuck, you fucked up your life and you're 38 and you're shit and that was very much my internal world. Look, you're behind the 8 ball in this, you're behind the 8 ball in that. And that was my internal monologue. And I was desperate for some person to pat me on the back and tell me you're doing all good, keep up the good work. And I'd flogged myself pretty hard to get myself into a position that was stable and that was good and that was growing, but I still hadn't crossed this one boundary. And the boundary at the time was having the capacity to be my own emotional strength in how I was tracking in life. And look, there was a bunch of other emotional areas that I still needed growth in, but I was really drumming down on this one particular aspect of it. And I remember as I was in my back shed and I had a couple of project cars in there and still do that I was working away on, and the shed was filled with tools. And I also remember very clearly the day I moved into that shed, I only had a couple of things and small amount of tools that I thought, this is such an amazing shed. I'm just going to be able to grow into this. It's got heaps of space. And it was months later that I looked around and the shed was jam-packed. There wasn't enough space. It was hard to move. There was just so much stuff in there. And I remember very clearly in a moment after an interaction where I really hoped, and I even remember myself angling the conversation to this person to try and get an attaboy from him and try and get this small emotional piece in my world, just a little pat and attaboy, mate, you're doing well. And it never came, and I was wrestling with it that night in the shed, and this kind of epiphany came over me once again about this stuff that I'd been working on, about my responsibility to be the meter of the fulfiller of my own emotional needs in my world. And as I thought about that, I reflected on going, you know what? I don't need an attaboy from anyone. I need an attaboy myself. And I remember walking around that shed and I physically patted myself on the back and I just kind of gave myself the old shoulder grab where it's just like, love you, bud. Like, obviously mean this more because I'm shoulder grabbing you. I gave one of them to myself. I felt good. I felt held and supported and loved. And I mean, I did. I felt it. But I walked around that shed patting myself on the back and I said audibly out loud, Brad, I am so proud of you. Brad, look what you have achieved. Brad, you have put in so much hard work and look at it pay off. Look at all this stuff you've amassed and this business you've built and this toys that you've got in your world that are a direct result of hard work and consistency and all of that stuff. In that moment, really flicked the switch into going that I am the guy in my world that fulfills the need in me to feel like I'm doing well. That pat on the back, that attaboy, that good job, Brad, that I need. I'm the guy that's responsible for that. Not that my wife, who she's home all day working with the kids and I put a big day in work and I walk home and why aren't I greeted with a smile and a hot home cooked meal? Don't you know how hard I work? You should be appreciative. None of that. No. Where are you at, darling? I love you. I'm there for you. I don't need you to fulfill this in me because I'm responsible for it myself because it's my emotion and my feeling. And I think as soon as we do that, as soon as we grasp the opportunity to go, hey, I'm no longer going to let an external situation or an external person be responsible. I'm not going to place that obligation on them. And half the time we place obligation on them that we haven't even told them that we're placing it on them. It's just an expectation that they would fulfill something in us. Whereas you alone, me alone, are the only person that is responsible to fulfill the emotional needs that we have in our life. And I think I look at some of these parenting styles and I look at this new generation of kids that are raising up, and I'm everything's on a spectrum, right? What looks like a no from one side is a no, but looked at the other side of the spectrum, it's a yes for the same thing. And it might sound a little crazy or a little bit confusing, but I'll definitely unpack that at some stage. But I suppose what I'm trying to say, I'm measured. I think there's merits in all the different parenting styles, probably all have their merits. But I just find these hardline people, that are like so locked onto the understanding and talking about the trauma that happens through upbringing of a child. And I don't want to take away the reality of those traumas, but what I really want to do is premise that we put so much weight on the parents these days to raise their kid in a certain way, and don't smack your kid because they're going to be addicted to bloody crack cocaine. Oh, you didn't let your baby sleep in your bed when I was younger, mate. There's a hooker if I've ever seen one. Bloody, oh, did you yell at Johnny for tipping that water on his sister? Or there's a pothead if I've ever seen one. There's this shit that we put on people to say you have to raise your kid in this particular way or be really gentle to their emotions because they're going to be some trauma-based fucking freak when they grow up because you haven't parented well. But as I look at that stuff, I go, well, actually, when you look over the whole course of someone's life, it is actually impossible. All stages of someone's life, through infancy to adulthood, every single day is an opportunity for something to offend that child or that person or affect that child or that person in some way greater than others. Now, of course, I think repetitive abusive situations or repetitive hard things 100% cause a whole bunch more deep-seated trauma-based stuff that need working through. But I'm talking the generalization of everyday life, right? There is no child that is going to grow up, and there is no parenting style or no parent out there that is ever going to do from day dot to the day they leave their house is this perfect situation and my kid's now great. Now, if that is the case, and it doesn't matter what we do, our children are going to be face some sort of trauma, then is it not better to explain, prepare, and communicate to children and have the same expectation on ourselves that we alone, regardless of our external parameters, are completely responsible for our own emotional health and our own emotional well-being? There is no point in that child's future where all of a sudden life is going to get easier and, oh, no, that's not your responsibility. That's the responsibility of the parent. The responsibility of the parent is to teach that child how to go through high emotional situations and for that parent to teach that child how to deal with and take responsibility for high emotional situations. And that's a massive comment to say, and there's probably a whole bunch of backlash that could come out of that, but I don't really care because I'm not saying that from a fucking infant you just leave them in a cot and that's your emotional problem, deal with it. That's by no means what I'm saying, because there's the other side of our own emotional world that it is also our responsibility to look after other people's emotional well-being. And there is an expectation that all of us have a responsibility, a core responsibility to make sure that we treat others well and do our best by other people. But at the very same vein, there is no point in me anymore that puts any expectation on an external thing or an external person to be the provider or be the catalyst that brings some sort of healing to my emotional world in some capacity. And as I was walking around that shed that night, I felt the freedom of just going, my emotional world is mine, and I am proud of me for what I have achieved. I don't care if my dad is, or my mum is, or my family is, or the person down the road, or my wife. I don't care. What I care about is I am proud of myself. And until you can stand firm on these things in your emotional world that only you can do, man, I could just rant on it. We get stuck in these headspaces of like, oh, how dare that person say that? Or I don't even want to go down this track because I just get fired up. But your emotional world, learn it, unpack it, understand it. And if you don't know, if you say, Brad, how do I understand my emotional world? Easy. It is so easy to start getting a handle on your emotional world. When you are talking next to someone, are you complaining? When you're talking to someone next, are you whinging? When you're complaining next, are you speaking future or are you dwelling on past? When you communicate to someone, do you communicate about the good things or do you communicate about the hard things? Now, I'm hoping there's a bit of a theme going here, but really by what you verbalize out to the world and by what you bring into each situation is completely your responsibility. And if you are flooding the conversation and relationship with someone with a whole bunch of shit that just sounds like a you problem, that you're desperate for something or some magical fucking fairy to just drop down and change everything and heal you and make you feel like you're a superstar, it ain't coming, baby. It's you and it's you alone. And it's a hard walk. It's a hard walk because it's real and it's isolating and you become the person that has to do the work. And the sad thing about life today, we are in a world where so many people don't want to do the work, mate. And you know what? Internal stuff in us, internal stuff is harder to do than external. I promise you that. And let alone people trying to get people right now in Australia, we have a massive job crisis of everything from cafes to restaurants to hotels to trade labor to different skill sets in the office. There is a shortage in labor. People don't want to do the external work. People that don't want to do the external work, you can guarantee they don't want to do the internal work. And if you're one of those people out there that is complaining about life, that is focusing on what you are missing out on or focusing about what you don't have or how hard it is for me because of this and all those things might be well and true in your world, but I don't really care because hard things are going to continue to happen to you. Hard things are going to continue to happen to me, and it's how I deal with them internally so that I project them externally are going to be the thing that progresses me in my life and progresses you in your life. So grab your emotional world by the freaking testicles or the freaking bujuja, if you got one of them, and let it know who's boss. You are the boss. You are responsible, and the buck stops with you. Be better. Do better. Push for better. Inspire for better. You can spend your days whinging or you can spend your days building and uplifting, but the choice at the end of the day is completely up to you. Choice at the end of the day is completely up to me. How am I going to choose and what am I going to do with this emotional situation? Anyway, welcome to Pirate Think. That is my thoughts on emotion. I have so much more to unpack on that. I feel like sometimes I'm all scattered because I kind of start scratching the surface at so many different multifaceted prongs of this stuff that we could delve into. And I'm really keen and excited to hear people's own version of what their emotional health looks like. Anyway, happy Sunday. Happy episode 10. Number 10, we made double digits. One more episode and we are at Port Douglas. No, this is it. No, tomorrow is Monday. I have a massive job coming up tomorrow. Little personal antidote to wrap up this if you are still watching. And if you are still watching or listening, thank you very much. I really appreciate having your ears and really hope to connect with a lot of you in the future. But yeah, Monday is a big job. I am wrapping up a pretty large friable asbestos demolition job down the coast, and it's been ongoing for a little bit, but Monday is pretty much the big wrap up. And then Tuesday morning, 6 a.m., we are in the car heading to Brisbane, ready to fly out to the beautiful Port Douglas, where I can't wait to bring you these beautiful episodes for the consecutive 8 nights, I believe, the beautiful Port Douglas. So awesome. Have a great time. Cheers. Bye.